All right, let's get straight into it. Consider this a Code Ninja security advisory because right now we are tracking a maximum severity threat that is aimed directly at your perimeter. We're breaking down CVE 2026-48558. And look, this is definitely not your routine Patch Tuesday kind of annoyance. We are talking about an active, assume breach scenario involving SimpleHelp, which, if you know, is a massively utilized remote monitoring and management, or RMM, platform. Threat actors are actively weaponizing this exact vulnerability to quietly siphon out your most sensitive AI, developer, and cloud secrets. So our objective for this explainer is simple. Analyze the disclosure, define the blast radius, and deploy immediate mitigations to force a fix and protect your infrastructure.
A CVSS score of 10.0? Yeah, that literally means the house is entirely on fire. In the vulnerability research world, a 10 out of 10 translates to 0 user interaction required. It's a network-based attack vector with the absolute maximum potential impact on your perimeter. Think about it. If your SimpleHelp instance is exposed to the internet, an adversary doesn't need to steal any credentials, and they don't need someone on your team to accidentally click a sketchy phishing link. Nope, they can just walk right through your digital front door.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates exactly why we practice coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Just look at the sheer velocity of this event timeline. Horizon3.ai actually discovered this flaw back on May 21st. By June 12th, public disclosure dropped right as the vendor pushed their patches. But, as you'd expect, the threat actors didn't just sit around waiting. Exploitation ramped up so incredibly fast that by June 29th, CISA slammed this directly onto their known exploited vulnerabilities, or KEV, catalog. They even issued a federal mandate with a strict patch deadline of July 2nd. So the escalating threat here is massive, and any luxury of a leisurely patch cycle, that's completely evaporated.
Phase 2. Comms check and acknowledgement.
Okay, during an active zero-day event like this, establishing a secure, unbroken communication link with your threat intel source is an absolute operational necessity. So I actually have to ask you directly, are your comms secure right now? Are you relying on delayed feeds, or are you getting actionable, real-time intelligence the second a 10.0 CVSS drops on your infrastructure? Because in this industry, being late to the intel feed is exactly how you end up compromised.
So, to make sure your intelligence pipeline is fully locked down, here is your immediate operational directive. First, hit subscribe to @cybertech79 for safety. Second, enable those notifications so you actually receive this real-time tactical intel the second it goes live. And finally, drop a like on this explainer to ACK, formally acknowledge receipt of this intel payload. All right, consider your comms link verified. Let's move on. Phase 3. Blast radius and impact. Now we need to clearly define exactly what is at risk here and how the adversary is operating once they're inside the perimeter. CVE 2026-48558 is an authentication bypass in the OpenID Connect or OIDC flow. And the root cause? It's honestly staggering. SimpleHelp was completely missing cryptographic signature verification on identity tokens. Just let that sink in for a second. An unauthenticated attacker can literally forge an OIDC token, submit it during login, and the server just accepts it. No cryptographic signature verification whatsoever. The result? The attacker is instantly granted a fully authenticated technician session. It's basically handing them the keys to the entire kingdom.
But hey, not every instance is automatically exposed, so let's assess your configuration right now. You are actively in a vulnerable configuration if you have OIDC enabled, and your technician groups are mapped with Allow Group Authenticated Logins turned on. On the flip side, you're safe. Well, from this specific vector anyway, if you have no OIDC configured at all, or if absolutely no technician groups are mapped to it. If you do fall into that vulnerable category, you have to assume breach right now.
Because here is exactly what the attackers are doing once they bypass that authentication. Step 1, they forge the OIDC token. Step 2, they gain that critical technician access, which secures them a trusted administrative channel. Step 3, they use the RMM's own legitimate capabilities against you to deploy a heavily obfuscated Node.js loader known as TaskWeaver. And finally, Step 4, TaskWeaver pulls down and executes the second stage payload, the Djinn Stealer. They are literally abusing the RMM platform to push malware, making their intrusion almost indistinguishable from totally normal administrative activity.
So what exactly is this Djinn Stealer actually after? The scope is terrifying, to be honest. They aren't just scraping your saved browser passwords. No, they are going straight for your cloud platforms, stealing AWS, Azure, and GCP access keys. They're hitting your core infrastructure tooling, stripping out Docker, Terraform, and Kubernetes configurations. And crucially, they are targeting your AI tools, harvesting API keys for Claude, Gemini, and OpenAI Codex. This absolutely proves that this isn't just an endpoint breach. A single RMM compromise is being weaponized to steal the foundational secrets of your entire cloud and AI development environments.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the stealth of the modern adversary. All of this highly sensitive, collected data, it gets packed up and encrypted using AES 256 GCM encryption. Then, it's exfiltrated right back to the attackers via temporary Cloudflare domains. Why does that detail matter to us? Because that outbound traffic is going to blend in perfectly with normal, legitimate HTTPS traffic. Your traditional network defenses and firewalls are just going to wave it right through, like a VIP at a club.
Phase 4, the mitigation protocol.
All right, we know the threat, and we know the devastating impact. Let's shift our focus to the action plan. Listen closely to this tactical patching protocol. Number 1, update SimpleHelp immediately to version 5.5.16 or newer. If you happen to be on the pre-release track, get yourself to 6.0 RC2 or the public release. Number 2, if you can't patch right this second, disable OIDC temporarily to completely kill that attack vector. Number 3, restrict login IPs so only your known, trusted administrative subnets can even attempt to authenticate. And number 4, and I literally cannot stress this enough, rotate all of your credentials on managed systems. I'm talking cloud keys, AI tokens, SSH keys, the whole shebang. Because Djinn Stealer is in play, we are completely operating under an assumed breach reality.
Now, to validate whether you've already been compromised, you've got to hunt for some very precise indicators. Audit your technician accounts immediately for any rogue users. Specifically, you want to be checking the Show Group Authenticated Users view. Check your server logs for unfamiliar email addresses logging in via OIDC. And on your actual endpoints, you need to hunt for node.exe executing a file named jquery.js. That deceptive little naming convention, that is the exact signature of the TaskWeaver loader, digging into your systems for persistence.
Phase 5, ethics and sign-off. Look, as security researchers, we really don't disseminate this level of technical detail lightly. There is a very strict ethical code behind coordinated vulnerability disclosure. I want to read this quote from the researchers who actually analyzed this intrusion chain because I think it perfectly justifies exactly why this disclosure is so critical. Quote, users need to know to protect their systems. A single authentication bypass became a pathway into everything, end quote. When a trusted RMM tool falls, your entire downstream infrastructure is at risk. Staying silent in the face of a CVSS 10.0 vulnerability, that only benefits the adversary. We disclose so you can defend.
All right, you have your intelligence. You have your mitigation protocol. Now it's time to execute on your perimeter. But honestly, it begs a pretty terrifying question. If a trusted RMM tool can fall this silently, what other supposedly secure platforms in your stack are currently betraying you? Stay secure.